Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest as the klaxon blared through the cramped command deck of the UNS Vanguard. "All hands battle stations!" "They've breached the outer perimeter." Her voice cut sharp over the din, steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. Below her, the holographic display flickered with red icons swarming like angry hornets toward Earth's orbital defenses. Lieutenant Raj Patel slid into the seat beside her, his fingers flying across the console. "Sensors confirm 3 Krell harvesters, ma'am. They're ignoring our hails, heading straight for the mining colonies on Luna." Raj's cautious nature showed in the way he double-checked each readout, his dark eyes narrowing. He was the planner, the one who mapped every contingency, but even he couldn't hide the edge in his voice now. Elena leaned forward, her brave streak igniting as she jabbed a finger at the main screen. "Patch me through to the ground teams. We can't let them touch those resources." The Krell, those hulking insectoid scavengers from the outer rim, had been probing human space for months, their massive ships stripping asteroids bare. But Earth? This was no probe. This was a raid. And Elena's ship was the closest line of defense. From the comms panel, Sergeant Kira Novak's face appeared. Grainy from the lunar outpost. Kira, with her witty grin even under fire, wiped dust from her brow. "Captain, we've got evac underway, but these bugs are fast. Their drones are already skimming the regolith, sucking up helium-3 like it's free candy." Her team was small, just her and a handful of engineers, but Kira's quick mind had jury-rigged defenses before. Now alarms wailed behind her as the ground shook. "Buy us time, Sergeant," Elena ordered, her mind racing through options. The Vanguard's railguns were primed, but the Harvester's shields could shrug off direct hits. "Raj, plot an intercept course. We're not waiting for reinforcements." The ship hummed to life, thrusters firing in a low rumble that pressed them back into their seats. Raj hesitated, his fingers pausing. "Ma'am, that's suicide. Their fleet outguns us 3-1. But Elena shot him a look, unyielding, the fire of someone who'd lost too many to caution. And he nodded, inputting the commands. The stars wheeled outside the viewport as the Vanguard surged forward. On Luna, Kira barked orders to her crew. "Seal the bunkers. Divert power to the laser arrays." A massive shadow eclipsed the outpost's lights, the lead harvester descending, its maw-like intake vents glowing with plasma hunger. The first drone swarm hit, chitinous forms burrowing into the soil, and Kira's team fired back, beams slicing through the air. One engineer went down, screaming as a drone latched onto his suit. Elena's display lit up with incoming fire. Krell warning shots that scorched the Vanguard's hull. "Evasive maneuvers," she shouted, the ship twisting like a dancer in zero-G. Alarms screamed as a glancing hit rocked them, sparks flying from a panel. Raj cursed under his breath, rerouting power manually. This was no clean fight. It was grit against overwhelming force. Kira's voice crackled over the link. "Captain, they're tunneling under us. If they hit the main deposit, it's game over for the colonies." Her wit faltered, replaced by raw determination as she hefted a plasma rifle, leading her remaining team into the fray. Elena clenched her jaw, eyes locked on the harvesters growing larger. Earth's resources weren't just fuel. They were home. Lifeblood for every human outpost. She wouldn't let the Krell take them without a fight. "Arm the torpedoes. Let's show them what humanity's made of." The Vanguard trembled, charging into the storm. The torpedoes launched with a guttural roar, streaking through the void like avenging spears. Elena gripped the command rail, her knuckles white as the Vanguard shuddered under the recoil. The Krell harvesters loomed ahead, massive beetle-like hulks burrowing into the asteroid field's edge, their drills chewing through rock toward the heart of the deposit. "Impact in 10, Raj called from engineering, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. He patched through a schematic, the hollow flickering with red warnings. "But Captain, their shields are modulating. Might not punch clean." Elena nodded, eyes narrowing on the view screen. The first torpedo slammed home, blooming into a silent fireball that cracked one harvester's carapace. Shards of alien alloy spun outward, but the beast kept grinding forward undeterred. "Then we adapt." "Kira, status on the breach team?" Kira's response cut through the static, her breath ragged from the zero-G scramble. "We're in the tunnel, ma'am. Tight fit. Krell drones swarming like pissed-off hornets. Lost Jenkins to a laser sweep." A muffled blast echoed over the link, followed by the whine of her rifle. "Pushing deeper. If we can plant the charges on their core drill, it'll collapse the whole shaft." The Vanguard banked hard, evading a counter-volley of plasma lances that scorched the hull. Alarms wailed anew, and Elena felt the deck tilt under her boots. "Raj, give me everything you've got on thrusters. We buy them time." He slammed a fist on the console, rerouting auxiliary power with frantic keystrokes. "Thrusters at max, hold on." The ship surged, weaving through the debris cloud. A glancing hit rattled the bulkheads, and for a heartbeat, gravity flickered, sending tools floating like ghosts. In the tunnels below, Kira led her squad through the choking dust, mag boots clamping to the uneven walls. The air hummed with the Krell's mechanical drone, a relentless vibration that set her teeth on edge. She was the cautious one, always calculating odds, but today, caution meant survival. "Flank left, cover right," she barked to her two remaining Marines, tough, wiry Thomas and the unflappable Lena. "Eyes on the vents." They spit acid. A drone scuttled into view, its multifaceted eyes glowing crimson. Thomas fired first, his shot shearing off a limb. The thing screeched a sound like tearing metal, and retaliated with a burst of flechettes that pinged off Lena's armor. She rolled, coming up with a grenade in hand. "Frag out!" The explosion lit the tunnel in stark white, collapsing a section of wall and burying the drone under rubble. But the victory was short-lived. Seismic sensors in Kira's helmet beeped urgently. "They're rerouting, bigger drill inbound. We got minutes before it breaches the deposit." Back on the bridge, Elena watched the harvesters adjust formation, their underbellies glowing as they accelerated the bore. The asteroid trembled on the scopes, fissures spiderwebbing from the assault. Earth's outposts depended on this vein, rare isotopes that powered everything from life support to warp drives. Lose it and colonies starved in the dark. "Captain, torpedoes reloaded, but we're down to 20% shields," Raj reported, wiping grease from his hands. His wit had deserted him hours ago. Now it was pure grit, fingers dancing over fried circuits to keep the ship alive. Elena made the call. "Fire a spread pattern Delta, then prep the boarding pods. If they won't stop, we go inside." The order hung heavy, but her voice didn't waver. The Vanguard's crew was small, family tight. Her, Raj's unyielding fixes, Kira's sharp instincts. They'd make it count. The torpedoes ripped free again, arcing toward the lead harvester. One struck true, punching through a weakened joint and erupting in the beast's innards. The machine listed drill sparks fountaining into space. Cheers erupted on the bridge, cut short as the other harvesters retaliated. A lance grazed the Vanguard's flank, shearing off a sensor array and a spray of debris. Kira's team reached the core chamber, a cavernous hollow pulsing with Krell tech. The main drill loomed, a colossal auger whining as it gnawed deeper. Drones poured from alcoves, forcing the squad into a desperate firefight. "Charges here!" Kira shouted, slamming her pack against the drill's base. Thomas covered her, his rifle barking until a drone's claw raked his suit, venting air. He sealed it fast, cursing. "Go, I'll hold." Lena hauled the last charge into place, her hands shaking but precise. The timer started. Kira grabbed Thomas, dragging him back as the chamber shook. "Not today, Marine. We all walk out." Above, the Vanguard dove into the fray, Elena's hands steady on the helm. The harvesters closed ranks, but the torpedoes had cracked their line. One more push and the tide might turn, but the asteroid groaned, a deep rumble promising collapse. Time was bleeding away. The explosion ripped through the chamber like a thunderclap, hurling shards of metal and rock in every direction. Kira hit the deck hard, her helmet cracking against the uneven floor, but she rolled with the impact, instincts kicking in before pain could register. Thomas landed beside her, his suit's alarms blaring a frantic staccato, pressure dropping, systems failing. The drill's whine cut off abruptly, replaced by the groan of collapsing tunnels as the charges did their work. "Status." Lena's voice cut through the comms, sharp and unyielding, even as she fired her sidearm at a swarm of drones scrambling from the shadows. Thomas grunted, slapping a sealant patch over the gash in his arm. "Breathing, barely." He pushed to his feet, rifle sweeping the debris-choked space. The alcoves were crumpling inward, burying the alien machinery under tons of rubble. But not before one drone broke free, its blades whirring like a chainsaw from hell. Kira lunged, tackling Thomas out of its path. The drone smashed into the wall instead, sparks flying as its chassis crumpled. She fired point-blank, the round punching through its core. That was too close. "Lena, we need exfil now." Above them, in the Vanguard's cramped bridge, Elena gripped the controls tighter, her knuckles white against the worn grips. The view screen flickered with alerts, structural integrity at 47%, enemy harvesters regrouping. The torpedoes had bought them a window, but the asteroid was fracturing, massive fissures spiderwebbing across its surface like veins of lightning. "Captain, incoming fire from Grid 7, Raj reported from the weapons station, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. He was the cautious one, always double-checking scans, but now his fingers danced over the console, launching countermeasures. Elena nodded, banking the ship hard to port. The G-forces pressed her into the seat, a familiar ache in her ribs from the last skirmish. Evasive pattern Delta. Kira's team is pinned. Get a lock on their beacon. She didn't glance at the holomap. She could feel the battle's pulse, the way the harvesters moved like a hive mind, predictable in their greed. The Vanguard shuddered as a plasma bolt grazed the hull, shields flaring blue. Elena's mind raced. Years of sims and scrapes had honed her edge, but this was no drill. Earth's last outposts hung on these rocks, rich with iridium and rare earths the invaders craved. Lose this and the homeworld's defenses crumbled. Down in the tunnels, the squad pushed toward the surface access shaft, boots pounding against trembling stone. Drones buzzed in pursuit. Fewer now, but relentless, their sensors homing in on the humans' heat signatures. Thomas limped ahead, covering their flank, his breaths ragged over the open channel. "These bastards don't quit," he muttered, popping off shots that felled two more. One clipped his shoulder, spinning him half around, but he recovered with a curse, firing back. Lena glanced at him, her cautious nature flaring, always the one to assess risks, to pull back if odds soured. "Save your breath, Marine. Shaft's just ahead. 20 meters. She lobbed a grenade from her pack, the blast collapsing a side passage and buying them seconds. Kira led the charge, her brave streak shining through in the way she didn't hesitate, didn't second guess. The shaft loomed, a narrow vertical tube lit by emergency strobes. She slapped the override panel, forcing the lift doors apart with a crowbar from her kit. "In, move." They piled in, the cage rattling as it ascended, but the drones adapted fast. One latched onto the exterior, claws screeching against the metal. The lift jolted, grinding to a halt midway up. "Shit," Thomas growled, slamming his rifle butt against the floor. "It's chewing through." Lena scanned the controls, her hands steady despite the adrenaline. "Manual overrides fried. We climb or we fry." Kira eyed the service ladder bolted to the wall, rung slick with condensation. The asteroid's rumble grew louder, dust sifting from above. No time for debate. She hooked her harness and started up, calling back. "Tomas, cover below." "Lena, you're with me." The climb was brutal, muscles burning as the structure bucked like a living thing. A chunk of ceiling gave way somewhere distant, the shockwave vibrating through the shaft. Kira's foot slipped once, heart lurching, but Lena's grip on her tether steadied her. Teamwork unspoken, earned in the grit of survival. On the bridge, Elena watched the beacon flicker. "They're stuck. Raj, target that harvester cluster, buy them time." Raj fired, missiles streaking out in a deadly arc. Explosions bloomed on the screen, harvesters listing and venting atmosphere. But one broke through, its beam lancing toward the Vanguard. Alarms wailed. "Shields at 20. Raj shouted. Elena rolled the ship inverted, the beam missing by meters. Sweat stung her eyes, but she grinned fiercely. Human grit against their cold efficiency. Not today. In the shaft, the squad crested the lip, spilling onto the surface just as the lift plummeted, the drone's wreckage tumbling after. The asteroid's surface was chaos, craters from orbital strikes, harvesters looming like mechanical behemoths, and the Vanguard dancing through the fray. Kira waved her signaler, locking eyes with the sky. "Vanguard, this is ground team, extract hot." The ship's bay doors cycled open, a beacon in the storm, but as they sprinted across the regolith, a harvester swung its massive arm downward, the shadow eclipsing the squad like a descending guillotine. Kira dove left, her boots skidding on loose gravel, the impact cratering the ground where she'd stood a heartbeat before. Dust billowed, choking the air, and she coughed, scrambling to her feet. Thomas was already firing his rifle, bursts stitching across the harvester's underbelly, sparks flying but doing little more than annoying the machine. "Keep moving!" Raj's voice crackled over the comms from the Vanguard, the ship weaving through a fresh volley of enemy drones. "Bays open, 30 seconds. Elena gripped the controls tighter, her knuckles white against the worn grips. The asteroid's surface blurred below, pockmarked and unforgiving. She banked hard, evading another beam that scorched the hull plating. The ground team was exposed, tiny figures racing toward the extraction point. the harvester pivoting to pursue like a predator scenting blood. In the engine room, Thomas wiped grease from his brow, his hands a blur as he rerouted power from non-essentials to the maneuvering thrusters. "Shields holding at 15%, he reported, voice steady despite the shuddering deck. "But if we take another hit like that..." "We won't," Elena cut in, her tone brooking no argument. She flipped the ship into a barrel roll, the G-forces pressing her into the seat. Human pilots didn't brake like AI could be hacked. They adapted, they endured. On the surface, Kira glanced back, the harvester's treads grinding forward, pulverizing rock. Lena stumbled beside her, clutching her side where shrapnel had nicked her suit. "I'm fine, go," Lena gasped, but Kira hauled her up, slinging an arm over her shoulder. Thomas laid down suppressive fire, his shots glancing off armored joints. "This thing's not stopping. We need a distraction." The harvester loomed closer, its manipulator claws extending, designed for ripping ore but lethal against flesh. Kira's mind raced. Improvising was their edge, the thing aliens never anticipated. She spotted a cluster of unstable volatile deposits nearby, remnants from the mining ops, glowing faintly under the harsh lights. "Tomas, aim for those vents on the harvester's side, force it toward the deposits." Kira barked, pointing with her free hand. He nodded, adjusting his stance, the rifle's recoil a familiar punch. 3 precise shots cracked the seam, venting pressurized gas that propelled the machine off balance, straight into the volatile cluster. The explosion was immediate, a bloom of orange fire that shattered the harvester's leg assembly. Metal screamed, fragments whirling through the low gravity like shrapnel confetti. The squad hit the deck, the shockwave rolling over them, but they rose, battered but unbroken, sprinting the final stretch. "Vanguard, we're in," Kira yelled as they piled into the bay, the doors hissing shut behind them. Lena slumped against a bulkhead, blood seeping through her glove, but she managed a weak thumbs up. Elena pulled away sharply, the ship groaning under the strain. Enemy fire peppered the rear, but they were clear for now. Thomas patched in from below, hull integrity at 60%. "We're leaking atmo in the aft section." Raj strapped in at the tack station, his face grim. "One down, but they've got more harvesters mobilizing. And that breach, we're down a pilot if Lena's out." Kira knelt by her teammate, sealing the wound with a field kit. Human bodies mended slow, but they fought through the pain. "She'll fly again. We all will." The Vanguard accelerated into the void, the asteroid shrinking behind, but the cost lingered in the hiss of escaping air and the weight of what they'd leave unfinished. Elena gripped the yoke tighter as the Vanguard's engines thrummed against the pursuing drones. Alarms blared from the console, red lights painting the cockpit in stark relief. "Thomas, reroute power to forward shields, they're closing fast." From engineering, Thomas's voice crackled over the comm. "On it, Cap, but we're bleeding juice from that breach. 60%'s optimistic. Make it 55. Raj swiveled in his chair, eyes locked on the tactical display. A swarm of alien harvesters dotted the screen, their needle-like forms slicing through the debris field like predators scenting blood. 3 bogeys on intercept. They're not firing to kill yet. Want us intact for salvage, probably." Kira finished stabilizing Lena in the med bay, her hands still smeared with sealant foam. She wiped them on her jumpsuit and dashed to the bridge, sliding into the co-pilot seat. "Lena's stable, but she's out for hours. We can't shake them with one hand tied." The ship shuddered as a proximity warning shrieked. Elena banked hard, weaving through a cluster of tumbling rocks from the shattered asteroid. One drone grazed the hull, sparks erupting in a silent flash against the void. "They're learning our moves. Raj, options?" He punched coordinates into the nav comp, fingers flying. Belt's got a dense patch ahead, old mining ruins. We thread the needle. They might hesitate in tight quarters. "Risky," Kira muttered, scanning the schematics. "Those harvesters are built for precision extraction, not dogfights. But if we snag on wreckage..." Elena didn't hesitate. "We do it. Punch it, Thomas, full burn." The Vanguard surged forward, the deck vibrating underfoot. The ruins loomed on the view screen, twisted girders and shattered habitats from humanity's early push into the belt. Now a graveyard of rusted metal. Elena's jaw set, her cautious side screaming against the gamble, but the drones were gaining, their sensor pings echoing like distant thunder. They plunged in. The first drone followed, its sleek form clipping a beam and veering wildly. Elena whooped, a sharp burst of adrenaline cutting the tension. One down. A second drone adjusted, firing a grapnel line that latched onto the Vanguard's flank. The ship lurched, pulling them off course toward a jagged spar. "Evasive!" Raj barked, but the controls fought back. The harvester's tether yanking like a fisherman's hook. Kira unstrapped, grabbing a manual override panel. "I'm cutting it loose." She yanked the access hatch, sparks flying as she sliced through cabling with a plasma torch. The smell of ozone filled the air, thick and acrid. Thomas yelled from below. "Incoming on the port side. Third one's lining up a boarding tube." Elena wrestled the yoke, sweat beading on her brow. The spar rushed closer, a lethal spike promising to gut them. "Kira now." With a final sever, the tether snapped. The Vanguard spun free, but momentum carried them scraping along the spar's edge. Metal screamed against metal, a gash opening in the hull. Alarms wailed anew, decompression in the cargo bay. They cleared the ruins, the remaining drone hanging back. Damaged but not destroyed. Raj slumped, rubbing his temples. "Bought us time, but we're limping. That gash. We'll lose more atmo before dawn cycle." Kira sealed the breach panel, her breath ragged. And Lena's pod took a hit. Vitals dropping. Elena stared at the stars, the swarm regrouping in the distance. The cost was mounting. Each scar a reminder that retreat wasn't victory, but humans didn't yield belts to scavengers. Not today. Raj patched through a new scan. Worse, they're signaling the mothership. Reinforcements inbound. The bridge fell silent, the weight of the void pressing in. Elena nodded once, resolve hardening her voice. "Then we improvise." "Thomas, what's our wild card?" Down in the guts of the ship, Thomas grinned through the strain, fingers dancing over improvised circuits. "Got something cooking. Earth tech they won't see coming." Thomas wiped the sweat from his brow, the hum of jury-rigged conduits vibrating through his gloves. The engineering bay smelled of scorched wiring and recycled air. Sharp and unforgiving, he twisted the final connection. Sparks dancing like fireflies in the dim light. "Wildcard's the railgun prototype," he said over the comm, voice steady despite the ache in his shoulders. "Earth's old kinetic slinger. No fancy plasma, just raw acceleration. But it'll punch through their hulls like paper if we sink it right." Elena leaned forward on the bridge, her fingers drumming the console edge. The swarm's signals blinked on the tactical display, growing denser by the second. "Range? Close enough to taste," Thomas replied. "But we need a clear shot window. Their escorts are weaving tight patterns like they know we're hurting." Kira's voice cut in from the medbay, clipped and urgent. "Lena's stabilizing, but the pod's failing fast. If we don't pull her in soon, we'll lose her for good." The words hung heavy, a tether pulling at Elena's focus. She glanced at Raj, who nodded grimly, his eyes fixed on the incoming reinforcements. Two larger silhouettes detached from the mothership's shadow, blotting out distant stars. "Prioritize the breach," Elena ordered. "Kira, get Lena prepped for transfer. Thomas, charge the railgun. Raj, plot an intercept. Make it look like we're fleeing the asteroid belt. Draw them in." Raj's hands flew across the controls, the ship groaning as thrusters fired in uneven bursts. The Vanguard lurched, debris from the earlier skirmish scattering like chaff. Alarms blared softly in the background, a persistent whine that set Elena's teeth on edge. "They're biting," Raj said, a thin smile cracking his fatigue. "Escorts peeling off to pursue. Mothership holding position. Probably thinks we're done." Elena watched the display, the false retreat vector bending toward a jagged cluster of rocks. It was a gamble, using the belt's gravity wells to mask their turn. One wrong nudge and they'd smash into oblivion. Down below, Thomas sealed the railgun housing, the weapon's barrel extending from the hull with a metallic screech. He imagined the slugs inside, dense alloy projectiles accelerated to hypersonic speeds by magnetic coils salvaged from the drive core. No elegant energy beams for humans, just brute force, the kind that had carved empires from stone back on Earth. "Charged and hot," he announced. "But the power draw is spiking our core temp. We've got one solid volley before meltdown." The swarm closed in, their sleek fighters darting like predators scenting blood. A proximity alert flashed. One veered too close, its scanning beam raking the Vanguard's flank. "Incoming fire," Raj shouted, yanking the ship into a spin. The deck tilted sharply, Elena bracing against her harness as simulated gravity flickered. Kira's comm crackled. Transfer tube deploying, Lena's vitals dipping. "Hold them off, damn it." Elena gripped the armrests, her mind racing through vectors. The escort pair was committed now, firing probing shots that lit the void in blue streaks. "Thomas, lock on the lead escort. Fire when we clear the rocks." The Vanguard threaded the needle, emerging from the belt's shadow with thrusters flaring. Thomas triggered the railgun. A low thrum built to a thunderous crack, the ship shuddering as the slug launched, invisible at first, then a streak of superheated air. It struck true, punching through the escort's shield bubble without fanfare. The alien craft buckled, venting atmosphere in a silent plume, its wreckage tumbling end over end. "Direct hit!" Thomas whooped, but his triumph faded quick. The second escort adjusted, unleashing a barrage that hammered the Vanguard's improvised armor. Shields buckled. A secondary explosion rocked the engineering bay, flames licking at Thomas's boots before suppressors kicked in. "Core's overheating, railguns offline," he yelled, slamming emergency vents. Elena felt the deck plates warp under the assault. Raj, evasive. "Kira, status on Lena?" "She's in the tube, but the hits are shearing the seals." Pressure dropping. The second escort loomed larger, its weapons glowing with charged fury. Raj plotted a desperate slingshot around a nearby boulder, but the alien anticipated, cutting the angle. In that frozen moment, Elena saw the cost etching deeper. Lena's life hanging by threads, the ship's bones cracking under strain. No retreat left now. Only the fight. "Thomas," she said, voice like iron, "override the safeties. One more shot, whatever it takes." Thomas's hands blurred over the console, fingers dancing across overrides that screamed warnings in red. Sweat stung his eyes as he bypassed the final lockdown, the core's hum rising to a fevered whine. "Safety's disengaged, Captain. But if we push her now, the rails might fuse for good." Elena gripped the armrest, her gaze locked on the viewport where the alien escort's silhouette cut through the debris field like a predator's fin. Raj twisted the controls, the ship groaning as it banked hard, asteroids tumbling past in a deadly ballet. "They're matching us. That slingshot's our only window." "Hold on." Kira's voice crackled from the medbay intercom, sharp with urgency. "Lena's stabilizing, but the tube's integrity is at 30%. One more hit and she'll vent into space." The words hung heavy, a reminder of the thin line between survival and silence. The alien vessel fired again, beams slicing the void inches from their hull. Alarms blared, lights flickering as secondary systems tripped. Elena's mind raced, no time for precision, only raw will. "Thomas, charge the auxiliary banks. Raj, line us up on that escort's flank. We're not running. We're ending this." He nodded, jaw set, rerouting power from life support in desperate bursts. The deck vibrated, air growing thick and stale, but the railgun's capacitor swelled with stolen energy. Kira burst onto the bridge, medkit slung over her shoulder, her face pale but eyes fierce. "I sealed the breach temporarily. She's tough, Elena. Like us." Raj whooped as the maneuver paid off, the ship whipping around the boulder in a gravity-defying arc. The alien loomed in their sights now, its shields flaring under the unexpected angle.
"Firing solution locked."
Elena leaned forward. "Now!" The railgun erupted, a spear of kinetic fury that punched through the enemy's armor like paper. Explosions bloomed across its side, debris spraying into the stars. But the recoil hit them hard. The core stuttered, sparks flying from Thomas's panel as overload sirens wailed. "Containment failing," Thomas shouted, slamming manual breakers. Heat waves rolled through the bay, singeing his uniform. Kira dove to his side, yanking cables free with bare hands. "Redirect to the outer hull, vent the excess." Elena watched the alien drift, crippled but not dead, its remaining weapons swiveling toward them. Raj evaded by a hair, the ship shuddering under grazing fire. The cost etched in every jolt. Lena's life, their escape, the fragile hope of home. In that chaos, Thomas grinned through the pain, a spark of defiance. "Got it, she's holding." The enemy fired wild, missing as their systems faltered. Helena exhaled, the bridge settling into tense quiet. But the fight wasn't over. The main fleet loomed on sensors, drawn by the flare. They'd bought time, nothing more. And time was Earth's most precious weapon. Thomas gripped the console as the sensors lit up like a fireworks display gone wrong. The alien fleet's signatures bloomed across the screen, a swarm of jagged silhouettes closing in from the system's edge. "They're vectoring straight for us," he muttered, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. The Vanguard shuddered again, not from enemy fire this time, but from the strain of her battered engines pushing against the void. Elena leaned over Raj's shoulder, her fingers drumming a silent rhythm on the armrest. "How long until they're in range?" Raj didn't look up, his hands flying across the nav controls, plotting micro-jumps to shake any pursuit. 10 minutes if we burn hot. Less if they predict our evasive." Kira patched in from engineering, her face grimy on the comms feed. Engines are redlining, Captain. One more push like that last dodge, and we'll be coasting on prayers. The bridge hummed with urgency, the air thick with the scent of ozone from overloaded circuits. Thomas straightened, ignoring the throb in his side where shrapnel had grazed him earlier. He'd patched it with a field dressing, but pain was just another distraction to shove aside. We can't outrun them forever. Raj, what's our closest sling? Any debris fields or gas pockets to hide in? Raj shook his head, pulling up a holographic map that spun lazily in the dim light. A single striking image dominated. The fleet's lead cruiser, its hull a labyrinth of spines and glowing ports, dwarfing their human vessel like a predator eyeing a minnow. Nothing clean within striking distance. But there's an asteroid cluster off the ecliptic, dense enough for cover if we thread the needle. Elena nodded, her cautious nature yielding to the moment's demand. Do it! Kira, reinforce the shields on the ventral side. That's where they'll hit first. The ship lurched into motion, thrusters firing in staccato bursts to alter course. Alarms blared as the first probing scans from the fleet washed over them. Invisible fingers probing for weaknesses. Thomas felt the weight of it all. The loss of Lena still raw, her station empty and dark. She'd been the one to spot that initial breach, buying them seconds that turned into minutes. Now with the aliens' main force inbound, those minutes felt like grain slipping through an hourglass. Kira's voice crackled over the intercom. Shields at 60%. I've rerouted auxiliary power, but if they board... She trailed off, the unspoken hanging heavy. Thomas cut in, his tone brooking no doubt. They won't. We improvise like always. He turned to Elena, who met his gaze with a spark of that shared grit that had kept them alive through a dozen skirmishes. Remember that mining rig back on Europa? We turned scrap into a shield wall. Same principle here. As the asteroids loomed larger, jagged rocks tumbling in lazy orbits, Raj wove the vanguard through the field with the precision of a surgeon. A near miss clipped their flank, sending sparks flying across the viewport. The ship groaned, metal protesting, but held. Elena braced against the bulkhead, her mind racing through contingencies. If they flush us out, we detonate the cluster, use the debris as a cloud to blind them. The idea ignited something in Thomas, a flicker of human cunning against the aliens' brute tech. Raj armed the forward torpedoes for proximity bursts, not to hit them, to shatter the rocks ahead. The navigator grinned, a rare flash of teeth in the tension, crazy enough to work. The fleet's vanguard broke into the field, their weapons charging with a distant hum that vibrated through the hull. Kira shouted from below, "Incoming salvo, evade port." Raj yanked the yoke, the ship spinning in a tight arc. Explosions bloomed outside, alien fire turning asteroids to dust. But Thomas fired first, torpedoes streaking out to fracture a massive boulder dead ahead. The detonation was spectacular, a cascading wave of shards that erupted like shrapnel from a grenade. The alien lead ship plowed into the cloud, sensors frying under the onslaught, its formation fracturing as secondary blasts rippled through the swarm. Alarms wailed on the bridge, but Elena's voice cut through. It's working, they're scattering. Not without cost. A fragment punched through their dorsal shield, breaching a conduit. Sparks showered down, and Kira's feed flickered out mid-report. Thomas slammed the comms. "Kira, status." Static answered, then her voice strained but alive. "Holding, but we've got a fire in the core. Need to vent or she'll cook us." The fleet regrouped, their fire intensifying, but the debris bought them a window. Raj pushed the engines harder, slingshotting around the cluster's gravity well. Elena watched the scopes, her breath catching as the aliens adapted, their adaptive algorithms learning the human trick too fast. They're compensating, flanking us from the far side. Thomas wiped blood from a fresh cut on his forehead, the metallic tang sharp in his mouth. Then we hit them where it hurts. Kira, can you rig a feedback pulse through their last scan lock? Her response came quick, laced with that witty edge she clung to in crises. On it. Give me 2 minutes and I'll make their computers think it's party time. The vanguard darted through the maelstrom, every jolt a reminder of Lena's absence, of the homeworld counting on this ragtag crew. The aliens closed in, their wrath a storm of plasma and railgun slugs. But in that press, Thomas saw the spark, humanity's edge not in power but in the refusal to break. Thomas gripped the console as the vanguard shuddered under another barrage, the hull groaning like a beast pushed too far. Kira's fingers flew across her makeshift rig, jury-rigging the alien scan lock into a weapon of their own making. "Pulse ready," she muttered, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her brow. "Firing in 3, 2. The ship lurched forward, Thomas punching the thrusters to buy her the seconds needed. On the viewscreen, the alien vessels swarmed closer, their sleek forms slicing through the debris field like predators scenting blood. One of them, a dagger-shaped cruiser, locked onto their flank, its energy weapons charging with an ominous hum that vibrated through the deck plates. "Gotcha," Kira said, slamming the execute key. A ripple of distorted static erupted from their emitters, invisible but fierce, slamming into the alien systems. The cruiser's lights flickered, then died in a cascade of sparks visible even from afar. It veered wildly, colliding with a chunk of asteroid that had once been part of a mining rig, the impact blooming into a silent fireball. But the others adapted, just as Thomas feared. Their formation tightened, algorithms recalibrating mid-fight, probes darting out to jam the Vanguard's sensors. "They're learning," he growled, swiveling his chair to face the engineering feed. The engines were overheating, red warnings flashing. Across the board, Lena's old modifications holding but barely. Without her steady hand at the core, they were flying on grit and prayer. Kira shot him a glance, her eyes sharp. "Then we teach them faster. Reroute auxiliary power to the forward arrays. Make 'em think we're bigger than we are." He nodded, hands already moving. The Vanguard was no warship, just a survey vessel turned survivor. But humans didn't build for surrender. Power surged, the ship's silhouette bloating on enemy scans with phantom readings of mass and weaponry. The aliens hesitated, their lead vessel pulling back a fraction, buying them a narrow window. Thomas seized it, banking hard into the debris cloud. Chunks of rock and twisted metal pinged off the shields. Each hit a jolt that rattled his teeth. "Status on the fleet?" he asked, voice clipped. "2 down from the pulse feedback," Kira reported, monitoring the chaos. "But they're splitting. Half coming at us, the other half vectoring toward the relay buoy. If they take that, Earth's warning goes dark." The stakes twisted tighter in his gut. The buoy was their lifeline, a makeshift comms array broadcasting their plight back home. Lose it, and the aliens could glass the outer colonies before reinforcements arrived. Thomas wiped the console with his sleeve, tasting copper from the cut that wouldn't stop bleeding. "We can't let them. Kira, can we overload the buoy's defenses? Draw them in?" Her laugh was short, edged with that unbreakable wit. "Overload? Hell, we can detonate it if we have to, but it'll light up the sector like a supernova. Blind everyone, including us." "Do it," he said, no hesitation. The plan was reckless, born of desperation, but it was theirs. He fed coordinates into the nav computer, plotting a suicide run that wasn't quite suicide, not yet. As the Vanguard dove toward the buoy, engines screaming, the aliens pursued, their fire grazing the shields. One shot punched through, alarms wailing as atmosphere vented from a secondary bay. Thomas sealed it off, the cold math of sacrifice settling in. 3 crew left, 1 ship, against a horde. But they pushed on, the buoy's beacon pulsing like a heartbeat in the void. Kira initiated the sequence, her voice calm over the din. "Charges armed, 30 seconds to breach." The lead alien ship closed the gap, its railguns spitting slugs that tore past them. Thomas evaded, the ship twisting in a corkscrew that pressed him into his harness. In that moment he glimpsed the alien's underbelly, a weak seam in their armor, exposed by their aggressive lunge. "Target that ventral port," he barked. "All guns on it." Kira synced the weapons, the Vanguard's modest lasers lancing out. They struck true, breaching the hull in a spray of escaping gases. The alien vessel faltered, drifting as internal explosions ripped through it. But the others were upon the buoy now, boarding pods launching like wasps. Time fractured. Thomas yanked the ship into a final pivot, ramming course set. "Brace." The collision was thunderous, the Vanguard scraping along the buoy's frame, sparks flying as Kira triggered the overload. Energy built, a rising whine that drowned the alarms. The aliens' pods scattered too late. caught in the expanding wave. Light erupted, searing the view screen to white. When it cleared, the sector was a graveyard, twisted wrecks drifting amid ionized clouds, the buoy a molten core at the heart. The Vanguard limped away, one engine dead, shields gone but alive. Tomas exhaled, slumping back. We held. Kira met his eyes, her grin fierce. For now. But they've got more coming. Earth's wrath isn't done yet. Tomas gripped the armrests, the Vanguard shuddering under residual vibrations from the blast. Alarms still chirped faintly, a nagging reminder of their battered state. Kira punched commands into the console, rerouting power from non-essentials to the flickering navigation array. Engines at 30%. We can't outrun whatever's next if they send the big guns. Across the bridge, Elena wiped sweat from her brow, her engineer's kit splayed open like a surgeon's tools. She'd been the quiet one, always calculating risks in her head before speaking, but now her hands moved with frantic precision. Hull integrity holding at 62. That ram job cracked the outer plating. Seals are makeshift, but they'll do until we hit dry dock. She glanced at Tomas, her voice steady despite the strain. Captain, we've got incoming signatures. 4 vessels closing fast. Not scouts. These are cruisers. Thomas nodded, forcing his mind to sharpen. The buoy was gone, a Pyrrhic victory that bought them time, but nothing more. The aliens, those chitin-plated invaders who'd swarmed the outer colonies like locusts, had come for Earth's minerals, her water, her very soil, but humanity didn't yield easy. He'd seen it in the grit of his crew, in the way Kira's eyes burned with that unyielding fire. Options. Talk to me. Kira leaned forward, scanning the tactical overlay. The holograph flickered, painting ghostly trails of the approaching fleet. Straight evasion suicide. We're a sitting duck with one engine limping, but look here. The debris field from the buoy. It's dense, laced with EMP residue. If we thread through it, we might mask our signature long enough to flank them. Elena shook her head, soldering a fried circuit with a hiss of sparks. Risky. The field's unstable. Magnetic eddies could fry what's left of our systems, and if they adapt. She trailed off, but Thomas caught the caution in her tone, the same wariness that had kept her from volunteering for frontline ops back on Mars. Adaptation's their game, Thomas said, his voice low and resolute. Ours is improvisation. Kira, plot the course. Elena, lock down the core. Divert everything to inertial dampers. We're going in hot. He hit the comms, broadcasting to the handful of surviving crew in the lower decks. All hands brace for evasive. We're not running, we're hunting. The ship groaned as thrusters fired, nosing into the graveyard of twisted metal and glowing plasma. Shards of the buoy loomed like skeletal fingers, scraping against the hull with a screech that set teeth on edge. Kira's hands danced over the controls, weaving through the chaos. First cruiser on our tail, locking decoy flares. Fire in 3. A burst of false signatures erupted from their aft vents, blooming like fireworks in the void. The lead alien ship veered, its sensors fooled for a heartbeat. But the others adjusted, their formations tightening like a noose. A warning klaxon blared, enemy fire incoming. Shields minimal, Elena shouted, slamming a panel shut. Impact in 10. Thomas yanked the yoke, the Vanguard rolling hard into a debris cluster. A missile streaked past, detonating against a drifting wreck instead. The explosion lit the view screen in harsh orange, fragments pinging off their armor like hail. Now Kira, full burn. She triggered it. The ship surging forward on an improvised slingshot path using the buoy's molten core as gravitational leverage. The maneuver was pure human hunch, born from old asteroid mining tricks, not some alien algorithm. The cruisers faltered, their precise vectors thrown off by the unpredictable pull. One enemy vessel clipped a larger chunk of debris, its hull venting atmosphere in a silent plume. The others pressed on, but slower now, wary of the trap. Thomas felt a grim satisfaction settle in. They're learning caution. Good. Means we're still in this. Elena patched through a status feed, her face pale but determined. Power surge holding. But the core's overheating. We've got minutes before cascade failure. Kira grinned, though it didn't reach her eyes. Minutes are all we need. Flanking position acquired. Target their weak point, their command node. Fire torpedoes on my mark. The bridge hummed with tension, every breath measured. Thomas watched the scopes, the alien signatures converging like predators scenting blood. But humans had teeth too, forged in the fires of necessity. "Mark," Kira said, and the vanguard spat defiance into the dark. The torpedoes streaked out like vengeful specters, their trails cutting sharp lines through the void. Thomas gripped the console edge, his knuckles whitening as the scopes lit up with impact warnings. The alien command node bloomed in a silent fireball, debris scattering like shattered glass against the stars. Shears erupted on the bridge, ragged and raw, but Kira's voice sliced through them sharp as a blade. "Hold. That's one down, but their flanks are closing. Evasive pattern delta, now." Elena punched the thrusters, the vanguard lurching under the strain. Alarms wailed as enemy fire grazed their shields, sparks dancing across the viewport like dying fireflies. Thomas scanned the readouts, his mind racing. The core temperature was climbing, redlining toward critical. They had bought time, but at what price? Sweat beaded on his brow, the air thick with the tang of overheating circuits. "Shields at 60%, Elena reported, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "If we take another hit like that, we won't," Thomas cut in, forcing calm into his tone. He wasn't the captain, but someone had to bridge the gap. "Redirect auxiliary power to forward arrays."
"Kira, what's our window?"
Kira's eyes flicked over her tactical display, her fingers flying across the controls. She was the sharpshooter of the crew, all precision and bite, but even she looked frayed now. Dark circles under her eyes from hours without rest. 2 minutes tops before they regroup. Their reinforcements are vectoring in from Sector 7, 3 heavies armed to the teeth. The ship shuddered again, a glancing blow that rattled Tomas's teeth. He tasted blood where he'd bitten his lip. Outside, the alien vessels loomed larger, their hulls a mottled gray that absorbed light, making them ghosts in the black. These weren't mindless invaders. They had strategy, patience honed over centuries of conquest. But humans? We improvised. We survived. "Got an idea," Tomas said, the words tumbling out before he could second guess. "Their command node's gone, but their propulsion relays are exposed. If we hack the debris field, use it as cover." Elena shot him a glance, half doubt, half hope. "With what?" "Our drones are spent, not drones. The mining charges from the hold. Rig them to the escape pods, launch them as decoys. Draw their fire, then loop back for a close shave on those relays." Kira paused, then nodded once, fierce. "Risky, but hell, it's human. Do it." They moved like a single organism, Thomas and Elena splicing wires in the dim engineering bay while Kira coordinated from the bridge. The core groaned beneath them, a beast on the verge of breaking. Thomas's hands shook as he armed the first charge, the metallic clink echoing in the confined space. One wrong connection and they'd vent the whole deck to space. "Charge is hot," he calmed up, sealing the pod hatch. "Launching on your mark." The pods rocketed out, tiny sparks in the vastness, baiting the aliens like chum in water. Enemy beams lanced toward them, illuminating the wreckage in stark relief. The vanguard slipped behind the debris curtain, engines whispering low.
"Now," Kira barked.
Thomas triggered the sequence. The charges detonated in a staggered chain, blooming into a false explosion that mimicked a hull breach. The aliens swarmed it, their formation fracturing. Elena gunned the engines, the ship surging forward in a desperate arc. They closed on the lead vessel's underbelly, where the propulsion relays pulsed vulnerable blue. Kira's targeting locked and the railguns thrummed to life. Impacts rippled across the alien hull, venting plasma in ethereal jets. One relay shattered, then another. The beast faltered, drifting off course. But triumph soured fast. A counter-barrage caught them broadside, shields flickering out like a snuffed candle. The bridge lights dimmed, emergency reds bathing everything in bloody glow. Elena cried out as a console sparked, scorching her arm. "Core breach imminent," she gasped, clutching the burn. "We can't hold her." Thomas hauled her up, his shoulder under hers. The air hummed with failing systems, the ship a wounded animal. Outside, the remaining aliens circled, patient as sharks. Kira's face was a mask of grit, but her voice cracked just a fraction. "Abandon ship? No, we fight to the last." Thomas met her eyes, then Elena's. 3 against the stars, bound by sweat and stubborn will. The vanguard listed, but she wasn't done yet. Not while breath remained. Kira slammed her fist on the auxiliary console, rerouting the last scraps of power from life support to the forward arrays. The hum of the ship deepened, a guttural growl that vibrated through the deck plates. Thomas, seal the breach protocols, manual override. Elena, talk to me on those drones. Thomas nodded, his fingers flying across the jury-rigged panel, sweat beading on his brow as he bypassed safeties that no human should touch. The Corps' warning klaxons wailed, a piercing screech that clawed at their eardrums. He could feel the heat building like a forge in his chest, but his hands didn't falter. Years of scraping by on frontier rigs had taught him that hesitation killed faster than any explosion. Elena winced, her burned arm throbbing as she interfaced with the drone swarm. The alien's tech was elegant, seamless, but the Vanguard's drones were brute force relics, cobbled from mining bots and salvaged fighter parts. "I've got partial control on half the flock," she said, voice steady despite the pain. "They're launching now, aiming for the lead ship's ventral vents." Outside the viewport, the alien vessels loomed, their sleek hulls glinting like obsidian under the distant sun. No grand fleet, just a Vanguard pack, probing for weakness after their initial raid on the colony outposts. They'd come for the helium-3 veins, Earth's quiet gift to the stars, but found humans instead. Stubborn, unyielding. Kira watched as the first drone streaked out, a firefly against the void burrowing into the enemy's underbelly. The lead alien ship shuddered, a bloom of debris erupting from its side. But the counterfire came swift, lasers slicing through two drones like paper. Elena cursed under her breath, adjusting trajectories on the fly. They're adapting, jamming frequencies. We need a wild card. Kira's mind raced, piecing together fragments from the damage logs. The core breach was minutes away, but the auxiliary fusion initiator, meant for emergency jumps, still had a charge. Untested, unstable, but in Thomas's hands? "Thomas, can you spike it? Overload the initiator into a pulse burst. Feed it through the drone links." He paused, eyes narrowing at the readouts. It was madness, turning their dying heart into a weapon, risking the whole ship in one desperate flare. But the alternative was surrender, and that word tasted like ash. "Yeah," he grunted, welding a conduit with a plasma torch. Sparks danced across his face, illuminating the grim set of his jaw. "Give me 30 seconds. It'll fry half our systems, but it'll light them up." Elena synced the remaining drones, her free hand trembling as she clamped a med patch over her burn. The pain sharpened her focus, a white-hot edge. Drones locked, pulse ready to ride the wave. The Corps' alarms peaked, the ship groaning as bulkheads strained. Kira gripped the command rail, her knuckles white. "On my mark." We hit them hard, then limped to the relay buoy. "Earth Command will hear this." Thomas sealed the hack. "Ready. Mark!" The initiator surged, a raw electromagnetic howl ripping through the hull. The drones ignited, not as projectiles but as carriers, blasting the pulse into the alien formation. Space lit up, interference waves scrambling shields and frying comms arrays. The lead ship veered wildly, engines stuttering while two others trailed plasma in their wake. One drone looped back, suicidal, slamming into a ventral port and vanishing in a secondary blast. Alarms blared victory klaxons mixed with failures. The core stabilized, barely, but navigation flickered offline and the aft thrusters coughed smoke. Kira exhaled, slumping against the console as the alien ships retreated, their formation broken, signals erratic. They'd bought time, not the war, but the colony's evac shuttles were clear now, streaking toward safety. Elena sagged into her seat, the med patch beeping steadily. "We did it. They're pulling back." Thomas wiped his hands on his jumpsuit, the torch still warm. "For now. But she's hurt bad. We'll need a yard to patch her." Kira straightened, staring at the stars where the enemies faded. The Vanguard hung in the black, scarred but breathing. Earth's wrath endured.